For decades, the world believed it knew the story of Elvis Presley, the fame, the music, the rise, and the tragic end in 1977. But there was one person who saw a very different side of him, his daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. She wasn't just a witness to his legacy, she lived inside it. She grew up behind the gates of Graceland, surrounded by everything the world admired and everything it never saw. And years later, when she finally began to speak more openly about her father, what she revealed changed the way many people understood Elvis Presley. Lisa Marie was only 9 years old when Elvis died. At that age, most children are protected from harsh realities, but her life was far from ordinary. She had already seen things that most people never would. She witnessed the routine inside Graceland, the late nights, the unusual schedule, the constant presence of people, yet a strange sense of isolation. To the outside world, Elvis was a legend, but to her, he was simply her father, and she saw the human side behind the icon. As she grew older, Lisa Marie began to reflect more deeply on her childhood. In interviews over the years, she described Elvis as loving, attentive, and deeply caring toward her. He wasn't distant with her. In fact, he was protective and emotionally connected. But at the same time, she also acknowledged that there were things happening around him that she didn't fully understand at the time. There were patterns, behaviors, and routines that, looking back, seemed unusual, and those memories stayed with her. One of the most significant aspects of her later reflections involved Elvis's health and lifestyle. Lisa Marie confirmed that her father struggled with sleep and had a very irregular routine. He often stayed awake through the night and slept during the day, something that shaped the entire environment inside Graceland. She also became aware, over time, of the medications that were part of his daily life. As a child, she didn't fully grasp what that meant, but as an adult, she began to understand the complexity of the situation. Perhaps one of the most emotional elements of her story is how she described her final memories of Elvis. She has spoken about the last time she saw him, not as a global icon, but as her father. There was no dramatic goodbye, no clear sign that it would be the last moment. Just a normal interaction, like many others before. And that's what makes it so powerful. Because sometimes the moments that matter most don't feel important until it's too late. As Lisa Marie Presley grew older, her understanding of her father's life began to change. What once felt normal as a child slowly became something more complex as an adult. She started to realize that the environment inside Graceland was not typical, not for a family, not for a father raising a daughter. There were always people around, but at the same time, there was a sense of separation from the outside world. And within that space, Elvis lived in a routine that revolved around his own internal struggles. In later interviews, Lisa Marie Presley spoke about how much she loved her father and how much he loved her. That bond was real and it was strong. But she also acknowledged that there were moments where she could feel something wasn't right, not something she could fully explain at the time, but something she could sense. Children often notice things without understanding them, and those silent observations stayed with her for years. One of the most discussed parts of her story is what she witnessed on the night before Elvis died. Lisa Marie was at Graceland that night. According to her own accounts over the years, she remembered seeing her father late at night, awake, moving through the house. This matched what many others later confirmed, that Elvis struggled with sleep and often stayed up into the early hours. At the time, this didn't seem unusual to her, because for Elvis, it wasn't.
In some interviews, Lisa Marie recalled speaking to her father shortly before going to sleep. It wasn't a dramatic conversation. There were no signs that this would be the last time they would see each other. It was simple, familiar, routine. And that's what makes it so difficult to look back on, because nothing in that moment suggested what was coming next. The following day would change everything. Elvis Presley was found unresponsive inside Graceland. Lisa Marie, still a child, was suddenly faced with a reality she could not fully process. The man she knew as her father was gone. And while the world mourned a legend, she was left with something much more personal, the loss of a parent, a moment that would stay with her for the rest of her life. As the years passed, Lisa Marie Presley began to speak more openly about her father, not as the world knew him, but as she experienced him. She described Elvis Presley as loving, present, and deeply connected to her when they were together. But she also acknowledged something else, something more difficult to explain. That behind the love and attention, there was a man dealing with pressures and struggles that weren't always visible. And as time went on, those hidden struggles became impossible to ignore. In various interviews, Lisa Marie reflected on how different things felt when she looked back as an adult. Moments that once seemed normal began to take on new meaning. The late nights, the irregular routine, the constant presence of medication. As a child, these were just parts of her daily life. But later, she understood that these were signs of a much more complex reality. A reality that her father was navigating quietly, without fully revealing it to the world. One of the most powerful aspects of her story is not what was said, but what was never said. Lisa Marie never described a dramatic warning or a clear moment where everything changed. There was no single event that explained it all. Instead, there was a slow build-up, a series of small details that only made sense in hindsight. And that's what makes her perspective so impactful, because it reflects how real life often works. Over time, her words helped reshape how many people viewed Elvis Presley, not just as a global icon, but as a human being, a father, a man under pressure, someone trying to balance fame, responsibility, and personal challenges. Her perspective didn't change the facts of his life, but it added depth to them. It revealed the emotional reality behind the image. What Lisa Marie revealed wasn't a shocking secret in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, a reminder that even the most famous people in the world live lives we don't fully see. That behind the success, the music, and the legend, there was a man who was loved and who struggled in ways that weren't always visible. And maybe that's why this story still resonates today. Because it's not just about Elvis Presley. It's about how easy it is to miss the signs, even when they're right in front of us. Now, I want to ask you, do you think Elvis could have been saved if people around him had acted differently? Or do you believe his path was already set long before that final day? Leave your opinion in the comments. I read everything. And if you enjoy stories like this, real stories that show what truly happens behind the scenes, make sure to subscribe, because the next story might hit even harder than this one.